Welcome to Before and After FC. This is where we do football memory the right way. We go back in time to relive the players who truly shined, the names that defined an era, and we put the story in order, the context, the form, the turning point, and the details most people forget. And today's trip is a heavy one. Barcelona, 1999-2000, the season riding the club's centenary celebration, Camp Nou in party mode, and a dressing room quietly on fire. Because yes, Rivaldo was the best player in the world, but he was living a cold war with Louis van Gaal. Just picture the symbolism. Barça had just turned 100 years old, and it wasn't just happy birthday and move on. The club wanted to prove on the pitch that it was as big as its own history. There was the commemorative atmosphere, the stadium feeling like a ceremony, the vibe of this is heritage. But football doesn't respect celebrations. Either you deliver performances, or the celebration turns into pressure. And then you have Van Gaal, organized, stubborn, fully convinced. He wanted a Barcelona with a strong identity, and that identity came with a passport. A lot of Holland in the squad. It was impossible to look at that team without seeing the Dutch core of the project. Reiziger, Bogarde, Frank de Boer, Ronald de Boer, Kluivert, and other players carrying a very specific DNA, the Ajax school. And here's a name that deserves a special spotlight, because his story in this Barça is almost heartbreaking. Jari Litmanen. At Ajax, he was a maestro, the brain of the team, the elegant connector, the guy who made the game breathe. European champion, reference point, pure class. But at Barcelona in 99-0, he simply couldn't really take off the way his career suggested he should. Why? Because Van Gaal's Barça had rigid roles, heavy competition, and a system that didn't always favor a cerebral playmaker like him. Litmanen becomes that classic football case, a genius in one system, misplaced in another. And if you love football stories, this is gold, because it proves talent alone isn't enough. Timing, context, and the tactical setup matter a lot. Back to the pitch. Put someone like Rivaldo into that system and boom, short circuit. Because Rivaldo wasn't just talent, he was impact. He was at the absolute peak. Ballon d'Or, best in the world, with the authority to decide big matches. In 99-0 he finishes with 23 goals, and he wasn't alone. Kluivert also ends with 23, forming a duo that, on paper, should demolish any defense. Figo chips in with 14 goals, Cocu with 8. So yeah, there was output, there were names, there was firepower. And there were nights when Barcelona looked unstoppable. In the Champions League, for example, they smashed Sparta Prague 5-0 at Camp Nou. They also beat AIK 5-0 at home. Those were video game scoreline matches, the kind of win that scares opponents and makes the fans feel certain. But the season also had the kind of game that becomes legend. And if you want a movie moment, it's this: Barcelona versus Chelsea in the Champions League quarterfinals. Barca go to London and lose 3-1. Suddenly it's crisis, pressure, headlines, drama. Then the return leg at Camp Nou, and Barcelona win 5-1. 5. The kind of comeback you don't explain with tactics alone. You explain it with atmosphere, weight, courage, and a team that, when it clicked, turned into a steamroller. In La Liga, Barça had stretches of brutal dominance. They beat Athletic 4-0 at Camp Nou. They won 4-0 at San Mamés too. They got 4-0 wins over Valladolid and Numancia. When the team showed up locked in, it wasn't just a win, it was a statement. But then comes the part nobody loves to remember. And it's exactly what explains the before and after of this season. Barcelona also took some heavy hits. There was the Clásico at the Bernabéu that still stings. Real Madrid, 3-0 Barcelona. And then Barcelona 0-3 Mallorca inside Camp Nou. Those matches are like cracks in a wall. You can paint over them, but the structure already felt it. And behind all those highs and lows, there was the tension that never left the air. Rivaldo and Van Gaal. And I'll say it straight, it was a bad relationship. Van Gaal wanted Rivaldo obedient to the system, often wide on the left, tied to specific functions. Rivaldo saw himself, rightly, as the guy who decides from inside, the number 10 who lives in the final pass, the final shot, the creative chaos. The result was that feeling of, I'm winning games, but I'm not winning the coach. Rivaldo himself has said there came a point where he just wouldn't accept being pushed to the flank like he was just another piece. And that turned into real friction, real wear, real dressing room tension. And when the best player in the world isn't at peace with the manager, the whole team feels it. In the end, the sporting summary is big, but it tastes bitter. Barcelona finished second in La Liga, with the feeling they could have gone further. In the Champions League, they reach the semi-finals, but fall to Valencia after a brutal first leg. They lose 4-1 away, and even though they win 2-1 at home, it isn't enough. In the Copa del Rey, they also reach the semi-finals, and in the Spanish Super Cup they fall short as well. In other words, it was a big club season, without a trophy. And that's what makes 1999 to 2000 so interesting here on Before and After FC. It's the perfect snapshot of how a team can be massive and unstable at the same time. You have the squad, you have the blowouts, you have the best player in the world, but the dressing room doesn't fully unite, the project doesn't click 100%, and the season becomes a roller coaster. And in the end, it leaves the cruelest football question of all. How does a team like this win nothing? If you enjoyed this football throwback, hit like right now, it helps the channel a ton, and subscribe to Before and After FC so you don't miss the next episodes. And drop a comment, which player or which season do you want to see next in Before and After?